Welcome to the Depth Chart Podcast. My name is Freddie Maggard. I'm in KSR office. I'm joined by Nick Rouse. Nick, you know the office is either 34 degrees or 120 degrees. So today is a 120-degree day here in the office. It's either hot or cold. So how are you doing? You doing okay?
I'm doing okay. It is not 120 degrees in my office, but once the sun starts shining and around noon or 1, it'll get that way. I'm in a sunroom, so it's windows open, a little bit toastier, but you know what? I'll gut it out for the people. I will gut it out for our good friends at Port Royal Plants too, who
Yeah,
are
absolutely.
title sponsors of the Depth Chart podcast. Which, Freddie, you've tried some of Port Royal Plants product before. What do you think?
I like it. I use it. I spray it on myself. The insect, that product. I go to games on Friday
Mm-hmm.
nights for high school, and I spray myself down, and it helps me out a lot. So Port Royal was so kind to send me some products, and I used them. I used them Friday night down in Jackson and Breathitt County. So I appreciate them greatly.
Well, you all should check them out by visiting portroyalplants.com. It's a Kentucky proud product, grown, processed, and manufactured in Kentucky. So that's how you know it's some of the good stuff. The best hemp in the country from the best place in the country. Because your mind and body deserve quality products you can trust. Learn more at portroyalplants.com. Try out a bunch of their products. They got plenty, but during the summer months, like Freddie said, you got to check out their CBD natural tick, mosquito, and bug
Yep.
spray. I'm one of those too, Freddie. I got to be outside, right? Like, especially with my son. Like, you can only play in the playroom for so long. You got to get out, hit your baseball, walk the dog, put on some of that Port Royal Plants mosquito tick spray before you go out. Just nobody wants those bug bites all over.
Yeah, I mean, you remember old school KSR football podcast? I always talked about taking baths, and everybody made fun of me.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bath product, just saying, and it's not. Nick, I thought we talk about the Kentucky offense. You know, we're closing in on game week here.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting close. It's getting close, and
11 days.
Yeah, 11 days. So yesterday was 12. Derek Ramsey's my guy, number 12, quarterback. Used to spray paint number 12 on T-shirt, and spray painted Ramsey on the back to be Derek Ramsey in the yard games, but in the backyard. So love Derek Ramsey. We're at 11 days. We got to start talking about the offense with Will Levis, the quarterback. I think I always say when you have a dude at quarterback, you got a chance, and Kentucky's got a dude. I think Will Levis is a heck of a football player. Draft projections are rising. But what I like about Will is, one, his arm strength. The football comes off his hand differently, quick release. He can make every throw in a tree. But I like the fact, Nick, that Will Levis has had two NFL quarterback coaches and coordinators. And I think with Rich Scangarello, who is a well-known quarterback coach, I think we're going to see the next step. I hate to use that term, the next step, but I think we're going to see the next phase of Will Levis' development with his footwork, with his decision-making, with the whys he make throws. A lot of times you have to understand why you make a throw. He had too many turnovers last year, something he's going to have to clean up. But I do think that Kentucky has a chance on each Saturday because of Will Levis. He is that good, in my opinion. And he has new weapons around him. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Will Levis is the guy. He is the face of the franchise. I interviewed him, got to meet him. He's mature. He's focused. You can tell he's dedicated to his craft. Will Levis gives you a chance, Nick Rouse.
Yeah, and I think if you're looking just from, all right, what's the one thing he needs to fulfill his hype? What does he need to do besides kind of what he showed us in the last 6 games of the season, particularly that final drive against Iowa? Like, no matter which way you cut it, as much as people want to make punter jokes about Iowa, that was a top 10 defense that he shredded in that final drive. That whole shot he had to Wan'Dale Robinson, that Wan'Dale got just absolutely drilled. Like, that was a professional pass. He needs to keep building on what he did by getting better in the deep ball. I want to say his accuracy he only completed like 20 some odd %. of his passes that were more than 20-plus yards through the air downfield. He hit a couple of them in the first 2 games of the season. And then you started to see where maybe he just he got excited and let it rip too far, or he tried to aim some of those. Freddie, if he can get some of that deep ball accuracy down pat, he's got some guys now that are fast enough to really extend that defense. So if he can connect on a handful more of those, I mean, that's where you're really going to see the growth and really see him validate the hype from those NFL draft prognosticators.
Oh, I agree. The deep ball, and also he's got to decrease that interception rate.
Yeah.
Like there were 12 last year, 13, something like that. So, yeah, I do think, and you also touched on it, part of the deep ball is last year, as dynamic as Wan'Dale Robinson was at Kentucky, he wasn't exactly a burner.
How many times did he get caught, Freddie?
Yeah.
Like inside the 5. He just did.
I don't think Kentucky had a player last year that could truly consistently get behind a defense. There's a big difference in throwing. There's a saying in football, even they're open, and that goes with a deep ball. So there actually may be some separation this year. Barryon Brown, Dane Key, DeMarcus
Jordan
Harris,
Anthony, Tikel.
We'll get right into the receivers with this. I think there could be some separation. Tavion Robinson is another player. So, part of throwing a deep ball is if you see just a slight bit of separation, that increases. I know it did me as a quarterback, my confidence, instead of, hey, I'm just going to throw this out there and see what happens, or that gives you a target to throw to. So that changes the mindset. Where it did me, that I was more accurate in a deep ball when there was separation from a pass catcher, from a receiver, from a tight end, etc. You tend to become more accurate instead of just throwing it up, just hoping somebody makes a play or makes a catch. So I think that group of receivers, Nick.
One more question before we get all the way into receivers, though, Freddie, because there's one aspect of Will Levis's game that is really good, and I don't know how much we're going to see it or not, and I'm curious your thoughts. That his ability to run the ball.
Yeah,
I mean, he's not an NFL first-round projected pick because of his ability to run it, but he changed the game when he ran over that dude from Missouri. He changed the game in that run against LSU where he was carrying guys down the football field. When he jumped over the guy at Louisville. Rich Gangarello, like Liam Cohen, he's an NFL guy, and the NFL guys are a little bit more hesitant to run it. How much do you think we see Will Levis running the football, knowing that the guys behind him, one of them's a guy who hasn't really played any from Iowa, and Kai Sharon's only been on campus 2 years from Somerset?
Yeah, that is a fine line, Nick. You don't want to change his game. And part of Will Levis, one of the strengths of his game is to get outside the pocket, get yards, but he's going to have to be smart about it. A lot smarter than last year. But I think that he's going to have to, and it goes against everything that's inside of him. I was never as talented as Will, but sliding, I never could do that. I never could go out of bounds because it's not in the way you're built, not your makeup. And I think one of the things that separates Will Levis from others is his competitive nature and the dog in him to get that extra yards. And that's what makes us one of the things that makes his teammates love him and respect him so much. He is going to fight for that yard. So maybe scrambling. I mean, I wouldn't take that run away from him. Same thing. But called runs, quarterback runs, may see less of that. And I think you can cut down on the number of hits that way. But I don't think you can ask Will Levis, or I don't think it's realistic to expect Will Levis to start sliding, going out of bounds, and not running the football. If there's an avenue there, nobody's home, nobody's open downfield, and there's pressure, he's going to be an athlete. He's going to be a competitor, and that's what makes him so good. So I don't think it would be healthy to ask him not to do that.
Well, and the thing is, too, Freddie, is as we saw last year, some games presented more opportunities than other. Like that Louisville game, they knew on tape, like, this is going to be there.
Well, that Louisville defense was so misaligned.
Yeah.
And out of – I mean, I
mean,
know a little football, Nick. I couldn't tell you what they were trying to do. I mean, they were lined up so wrong on so many occasions. Their gap responsibility was so out of whack. So Will just had open areas to run. I mean, it was just part of it. But yeah, I think designated runs, we're going to see less of that. But you can't expect Will not to run the football in bootlegs or in the situations.
Well, and that's like, maybe 4 or 5 called runs the game, maybe 4 or 5 scrambles.
Maybe.
Keep it under 10.
Yeah.
That'd be nice. That'd be nice. It's good to know that you've got a guy, though, when you need to get to the sticks, if all else goes wrong, he's going to get it. And that was the advice he received from Tim Tebow was, dude, just be you, like be you, and you'll know when it's time to slide. You'll know when it's time to lower your shoulder. Just lower your left shoulder, not the right one.
Yeah. Because one of the most damaging things you can do to a quarterback is ask him to change his game. I mean, throw emotion aside. We saw what that did to Andre Woodson, how that affected him. But you can't ask Will to not be Will. I mean, that's just not going to work. He's going to do Will things, and that's what makes him special. Let's move on to receivers real quick.
Yep.
We talked briefly on that. I think this receiver room is more talented than it has been in the past. While not a lot of experience or proven production outside of Tavion Robinson, and DeMarcus Harris was somewhat. He had 16 catches last year.
Yeah.
But Tavion Robinson is that experienced guy. But you got a bunch of newcomers. You're going to see Dane Key, Barryon Brown, and those guys are going to impact Da'Kel Crowdus, etc. So I do think that you'll see more separation in the vertical game. You're going to see Dane Key is as polished of a route runner as you're going to see as a true freshman in the Southeastern Conference. Then Barryon Brown just has that athletic explosiveness where you just want to get him the football in space and let him do his thing.
Yeah.
And I think having a wide receiver room that is not unhealthily dependent upon one receiver like Kentucky was with Wandale Robinson last year, it's going to open up the whole field for Will Levis. And I think that's going to help his completion percentage rise because last year, 70% of passes went to Wandale, something of that nature.
That's crazy.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
But Kentucky did and was successful. So I think you're going to see these young guys like Dane and Barryon come onto the scene. Then there's some proven not veterans, but guys have been around a while. DeMarcus Harris, Chris Lewis, Chauncey Wood.
See, that's the group I'm really interested in, Freddie, because Magwood's a guy that we forget about, and he wasn't the highest rated because he was a high school quarterback.
Yes.
Then he ends up going learning the slot. He's now entering year 3. He's physically, Freddie, he might be the strongest. If you're just a guy that walks off the bus, like he looks like the dude who's getting after it in the weight room. And apparently he had a really good scrimmage on Saturday in the second scrimmage. And I'm pretty confident he's going to be in the rotation along with Robinson. I'm curious how Chris Lewis fits in with Dane, because when we get to the tight ends, this isn't going to be 4 and 5 wide receivers. Like you're going to play 5 of them, maybe 6.
Yeah, 6, I'd say.
So I'm curious how guys like Magwood and Lewis fit in. I feel like I know Brown. He's the explosive guy that you kind of just work into specific things, and maybe during certain situations. Robinson's going to get a lion's share of the targets. Harris is probably your most reliable guy. But I'm wondering where those other Lewis and Magwood really fit into the equation.
Yeah, I think I think you're right. I mean, I don't think, and we'll talk about the tight ends in a minute. The wide receivers are going to be important. They always are. Kentucky has gone through a period where you have one wide receiver that you could depend on. For a couple of years, it was Josh Ali. Then last year, Wandale Robinson and Ali. Ali got hurt, so it was just Wandale. The room is deeper. The room is more talented. But the room is young. And that brings on a dynamic of, okay, how much are we going to focus on the receivers because we got 4 or 5 tight ends that can do really good things. So
yeah.
and then it's going to be, when you're talking about downfield throws to the receivers, you have to have a couple things. You have to have 2 offensive tackles that sets the edge. And right now, that's an unproven spot. Those are unproven spots for Kentucky. So I'm not for sure, or especially early in the season, you're going to see Will Levis 7-10 yards in the pocket, taking 3-4 seconds to get the football downfield. I think it's going to be a lot of quick hitters, which is good for younger receivers. Now, I think Dane Key is going to operate downfield more because of his route running, but you're going to see a lot of quick hitters with these receivers that you can take experience out of it.
Yeah.
Just catch the ball and hold on to the football, make a play. I think we're going to see a lot of that early.
Yeah, and Freddie, we've talked a lot about these young guys. It's important to note that as much as I'm sure there's some reservations from Kentucky football fans, like we've heard this before, right? Where you got these new receivers in, it's going to be different this year, and then it's not.
Right.
When Mark Stoops says this is the most talented receiver room top to bottom, I mean, he's objectively correct. I know we like to pick on recruiting rankings from time to time, but if you draw a line like top 500 recruit, right, that should be a pretty good player. I mean, they've got 4. I think they've got 5 of them in there between Lewis, Jordan Anthony, Dane Key, and Barryon Brown. And Brown and Key were top 300 guys. I mean, that's twice as many as they've ever had in the room at any one given point. Like there's more dudes in there. DeKel Crowdis was the other one that I just completely blanked on. That's 5 top 500 guys when I don't know if they've ever had more than 2 at any one given point on the roster throughout the Mark Stoops era. So Kentucky, they've been aggressive on the recruiting front, and we should start seeing some of those results this fall.
Yeah, I mean, that position has been a weakness for Kentucky. Really for 4 or 5 years maybe, and now you see you don't see proven production, but you see potential, like you said, with all these high-ranking players. And again, rankings are rankings, but you can just watch how Barryon Brown moves.
Yeah,
you can watch how Dane Key runs routes. You can see the speed in DeKel Crowdis. Magwood is more of a route runner, possession type receiver. And Chris Lewis could be a red zone threat because of his height. Put him out there, throw the ball up. Same with Dane Key. Dane made a great touchdown catch in the scrimmage last Saturday. Heard really good things about him. And Barryon, the scrimmage before. So, yeah, it's a deep room. It's more talented. Fast room, but, you look how you take the season in segments, right? I think the first segment or early on, you're not going to ask those tackles to protect 4 or 5 seconds, and you're not going to ask those receivers to run 15, 18-yard routes. You're going to get the football in their hands and see if they can make plays, and then rely on the next group we'll get into the tight ends. You talked about fitting. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to hit on the speed a little bit real quick, Freddie, because that's another spot where they put a lot of emphasis on. Yeah. And I don't know. Jordan Anthony's a little guy. I don't know where he fits in, but he is fast.
Yeah.
Barryon Brown, he's a burner, a bona fide burner. Tavian Robinson's really good at creating separation with the ball in his hands. But Barryon Brown, Freddie, there's going to be some points where he's just going to be blowing by opponents, and they're going to be picking up their pants because their belt fell on the ground. And that's where you can visit our friends at klwbelts.com. KLW handmade belts. They're made in the US of A. A Lexington, Kentucky company, if I'm not mistaken.
Perry County.
Yeah. And they've got the custom nameplate belts, belts for men and women. There's free shipping if you visit klwbelts.com. Handmade right here in the Bluegrass. Take advantage of free shipping on all web orders. It's all genuine leather, no synthetics, padding, backing. It's the real stuff. So call 859-509-7816 or visit klwbelts.com. I know some of those opponents, they're going to have to be, they're going to be picking up the drawers, Freddie. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and I know of the 2 of us, one of us didn't bring a belt to SEC Media Days.
Oh, God. Yeah,
and we
that
were
was the
stuck
problem.
downtown Atlanta, so there was really no place to get a belt. So you were picking up your pants half the time.
And I have such a pet peeve too. Like I'm one of those where I have to match my shoes
Yeah,
to the color of my belt. So if I got black shoes on, got to be a black belt. And I can't tuck my shirt in and have empty belt loops. Like what am I, a kindergartner? No, go to klwbelts.com. Proud sponsors of the Depth Chart podcast.
yeah. We should be getting our belts here in the next couple of days. So you make an order, they ship it that day or the next day, so you get it quick. But I like it. It's a Kentucky company. It's Garrett County in Lancaster. 859-509-7816, and you can get a quality belt that hopefully, Nick, you won't forget on the road trips this year because you need it.
Well, and I also like too, they do the nameplates. So
Yeah,
if you
I've
ever
always wanted one. I've never had one. I've always wanted one of them.
did
I
you ever
think
get
that's
one
so
of
cool.
those I always it was one of those things I thought was cool in college. It reminds me of like you think the Leatherman's jacket's really cool in high school, but then you never wear it again. The
Yeah,
needlepoint belts with all of the little stitching. Like I
yeah,
thought that was so cool in
yeah,
college, and now I'm just like, where am I gonna wear this? Like
yeah,
to the
yeah.
tailgate?
Yeah, I agree. So klwbelts.com. Check them out. Good folks over there. Tight ends. Rich Gangarello says there's 4 to 5 pros in there in that room. That's a lot,
Yeah, yeah.
especially because you got 5 scholarship tight ends, pretty much. So you're saying every tight end in your room is going pro, and I'm hearing Jordan Dingle's name just about every time they take the field. And he's from Bowling Green. I thought he was the best player in the state championship games a couple years ago when I called those. But I'm hearing his name all the time, and he could have a breakout year. Then you get Brendan Bates. I mean, Bates probably won't do a lot of work downfield, but there's not a better inline blocking tight end in the conference than Brendan. Isaiah Cummings is we don't talk about him because of Dingle and Caddis and the return of Keaton Upshaw. But Keaton Upshaw 2 years ago was a riser, right? I mean, he was a player that we thought, man, this guy's going to be a star. So Isaiah Cummings is a player we're not talking about, and is a former receiver from Male, moved to tight end. He's up to 240 pounds. He can operate downfield. So, and then Jordan Diggle and Josh Caddis. I mean, that I think early on. Again, let's break the season down a little bit. The first portion of the season, you're going to see, and we said this many times, many years. You're going to see. Hopefully, this year it comes to fruition. You're going to see more passes to the tight ends, because you're getting that receiver group some experience, right? You're letting them do their thing. But when you need a first down, when you need a completion, you've got 4 or 5 dudes that can get open and catch the football. And from the 49er system to Kentucky with Scangarello, I think you're going to see a lot of multiple tight end sets, formations, personnel groups, and Will Levis is going to find them in the passing game. So I think, tight end is a strength of this team, and I think you're going to see a lot of them frequently. And for me as a quarterback, tight ends were always my safety valves. I love throwing the football to tight end. One, you can scheme tight ends open more so than you can scheme open receivers. Receivers, a lot of times, it's one-on-one. You got to beat that corner, right? Kentucky's not won a lot of one-on-ones with receivers other than Wandale Robinson and at times Josh Yali in the last 4 to 5 years. So that's asking a lot of these true freshmen to beat SEC corners one-on-one, where you can scheme. Used to have a drill called Minifield where you worked inside the hashes with the tight ends. You can scheme tight ends open more than you can, say, the receivers 18, 20 yards downfield.
Yeah, and the thing too, Freddie, like it's one of those things where I get excited about one and I forget about the other too.
Yeah.
Like it felt like Isaiah Cummings is the perfect example of it.
Yeah.
Where once I get excited about one guy, it's like, oh, I forgot about him. Same thing with Keaton Upshaw. I haven't heard a lot about him. I think his return to injury has slowed his role. But generally speaking, tight ends they get hit a lot, Freddie. I
Yeah,
mean, Bates, I think he was healthy last year, but the year before he had to miss 3 or 4 games because he broke his finger or something like that. Uh, we know about Upshaw's injury history. Isaiah Cummings, I think he had a shoulder after the Louisville game. I don't know. I don't think he played in the Iowa game, but he ended up he might have and then had off-season surgery. But like this is a position that there's a lot of natural wear and tear. There just
yeah,
is.
yeah,
So to be able to have so many options is so critical in this offense where Freddie, we only saw a couple 11 on 11 periods, but the way they move them around, the way they motion them, the where they line them up all over the place, use them not only to block and pass pro, to block in as lead blockers in the run game, to go out for pass. Like this offense asks a lot to do, it demands and it asks a lot of this position. It's just great that they have this sort of depth in the depth chart where you can find guys to plug and play seamlessly, and you're not necessarily like there will probably be some times, Freddie, where Coach Rich is like, get Isaiah in, or we need Upshaw. But for the most part, Vince can roll those guys in
yeah.
as they're getting hot, and Rich can just call the game seamlessly without having to think about what personnel is in or out of the game.
Yeah, Josh Caddis, true freshman. I mean, not a lot was expected of him in year one, and here we go in camp, hearing all kinds of good stuff about Josh Caddis. I know last Saturday's scrimmage, Dingle had 4 catches and Caddis had 4 catches, so that's 8 just in those 2 tight ends alone, and those are your youngest tight ends. So, again with Caddis, I mean, I didn't expect him to factor this year and universally being praised, players, coaches alike. One, his work ethic. 2, how quickly he's picked up the game, the physicality in his blocking or his willingness to block. And
Yeah.
then he's getting open against linebackers. So, yeah, there's so many different ways you can use these tight ends. And I expect Kentucky to go to the tight ends, especially in the early portion of the season.
I just love tight ends that are just meat hammers.
Yeah,
And like that Caddis headhunts as a blocker. You
and
don't
that's a mullet.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything you want from just a guy who's a dude in there. If this was your age, Freddie, that jersey, if this is from your era, that jersey's ripped off,
Oh, yeah.
shoulder pads.
Yeah.
He's got a cowboy collar, like I mean, and also like a bull ring helmet too.
Yeah.
Because he's freaking knocking some dudes on
Yeah,
their
with
butt.
a bunch of gashes in the helmet, Yeah, absolutely. But tight ends, I tell you, I'm excited about them. I think they're going to really come into play early in the season. See a lot of them against Miami and down at Florida. Nick, the offensive line. This is, this is where the games are won and lost. And talking about KLWBelts.com, this offensive line's got to tighten their belts, especially at tackle.
Yep.
I think Kentucky will go as far as the offensive tackles takes them. Looking at both sides of the football, looking at special teams, all 3 phases, I think you can, in my opinion, you can break it down to as simple as this. 2022 will be as good or not as good as the offensive tackles. That's a lot of pressure, and you can scheme around that. But you are going to have a 3rd and 9 situation multiple times. You're going to have a 3rd and 10. So I think Jeremy Flax has solidified his spot on the right side, and he's beside Tayshawn Manning. I think running the football to the right will be a strength behind those 2 because run blocking is much easier than pass blocking. Neither one of them are easy, but it's more easily accomplished to run block. So I think Flax of the 2, I think Wright is the most settled with Jeremy there. He played some last year. One of my disagreements with the previous offensive line coach is I don't think he played enough players. And Flax was key. I mean, he got in some, but didn't develop that second team. Now you're in a predicament where you got Jeremy out there on the right side. I've heard he's had a good camp, and he's going to have to be solid. This is going to sound strange, Nick, but of all the players, he may be the most irreplaceable on the offense
Yeah,
because you have to have one that you can count on. The left side we'll get to in a minute, but you have to have that right tackle, and Jeremy Flax is in that role. You have to have him there for 12 games.
and that was the point Adam Luckett made recently on 11 personnel is you have to have at least one. You can't have two
Yeah.
bad ones. And the thing that Flax has that the others don't have is Flax is an old guy. You
Yeah.
know, he was a JUCO kid that has now spent this is his third year on Kentucky's campus. And I'm really like if you want to if Jeremy Flax is successful this year, then you got to thank Eric Wolford for getting the hell out of Lexington because Flax was almost ruined by it. Like he couldn't handle. Wolford is old school, chew your ass out, cuss you up and down, and Flax couldn't handle that style of coaching. He couldn't, and I thought he was lost. Yinzer's really helped him get back on track, help him regain that confidence, build him back up. And if Flax can be that dude, I mean, he has the recruiting pedigree. You know, he checks all the right boxes, the size, the length. You know, I think he's got a good head on his shoulders, and he's what's the word I'm looking for? Like he's aware enough and he's comfortable enough in his own skin to admit when he's vulnerable and like tell the media, like, you know, I thought, you know, there's been a lot of ups and downs, and now I'm on the way back up. And to have that confidence is incredibly important, especially, I mean, if you look at that right side of that line, Freddie, just imagine this. You've got a little pin and pull situation where it's Jeremy Flax, Tayshawn Manning getting downhill with Jagger Burton or Kenneth Horsey pulling around the outside as a lead blocker.
Yeah.
I mean, and you even have Brendan Bates at tight end out there too. Like that's a lot of big, strong, physical guys to run behind. That can be the strength of your offensive line in the run game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're going to see a lot of right side runs because of that. Because you're going to have multiple tight ends. You get Brendan Bates is one, like I said, you won't find a better inline blocking tight end in the league than Bates. And then those two, left tackle, your guess is as good as mine. I know a lot was expected of DeAndre Buford. I'm not for sure that is developed the way that a lot wanted. David Wallaball got a lot of reps with the first team. He's a redshirt freshman. So, again, that left side, we'll see. Kenneth Horsey on that left guard, solid. You know, I think interior-wise, starting with my guy Eli Cox right there, I'm hearing that Eli has a chance to be better than John Toth, Drake Jackson, and Luke Fortner. And, you know, I love those three guys, and that's saying a lot if I'm saying that, right? So, Eli Cox, strongest guy on the team, mid-year All-American guard, kick him into center. I don't think he got enough preseason All-SEC love because of the position change, but I think Kentucky's not going to lose much at center. And that's saying a lot because Luke Fortner is starting for the Jaguars right now. So,
right.
That's the way. So I really like Eli in the middle to direct traffic. Now, guards, you got Kenneth Horsey, Tayshawn Manning, two different type of players. Manning is a mauler, run block, very good. Horsey is more complete, can pass block. Little light, he's lighter than Tayshawn, but so many snaps, so many starts in the Southeastern Conference. And then I think what makes the interior so valuable, you have Jagger Burton who could start at 8 schools in the SEC right now, probably. Have him as your third guard. John Young has developed nicely in year 3. And then Quentin Wilson, backup center. So you got a lot of rotational guys inside. I think you're going to see a lot of that. The question is left tackle.
Yep.
David Wallaball, you know, running with the ones. DeAndre Buford. See how that works out. They're going to kick him somewhere else to right, maybe. I don't know. And then Keontae Goodwin, the 5-star true freshman. That's a lot to ask of a true freshman to play left tackle in the SEC.
Here's my question for you, Freddie. You've seen a lot more football than me. When you get a young kid to come into a spot like a left tackle. Like, is that something you can play your way through? Like, if Goodwin plays 2 or 3 series apiece in those non-conference games to open up the season, is that enough experience to be comfortable throwing him out there? How much can you grow through those live reps as a true freshman?
Well, that's a tough question because if Scangarello expects him to be a consistent rotational player in the 2 deep, you're going to have to play him half the snaps against Miami of Ohio because you do not want his first significant game action to be in the swamp where communication is not going to be possible. It's going to be light. It's going to be at night. It's going to be noisy. It's going to be loud. And that's a tough one. You know, we saw Tim Couch, a true freshman, play down there, and that wrecked him, right? So a different position. But, you got 2 veteran edge guys from Florida. That, you won't see Keontae get some snaps against Miami of Ohio. But then you also have to keep whoever the starter is, you're going to have to get him some snaps, whether it's Wallabaugh or Buford. So one of those 3 is going to have to kick over to right. Now, I think Wallabaugh can play right and left.
Yep.
But at this point in camp, you've got to dial in, okay, this is my left. Is it Wallabaugh? Is it Buford? Because you want Keontae Goodwin, the true freshman, to play one spot, left or right, wherever he's going to be, because you don't want him thinking too much, okay, I do this on the left side, I do this on the right side. You want him at one spot and just let him develop. Wallabaugh and Buford, maybe you can rotate around.
The only good example I have, Freddie, is Landon Young having to fill in for Cole Mosier, and I guess that'd be 2016.
Yeah.
Where Mosier, I think it was a knee down at Florida, and Landon just had to play right away.
Yeah.
And Landon, he looked like a true freshman out there for a couple of those series, but he ended up settling down. And Freddie, throughout the year, there wasn't a lot of I didn't get a lot of worry, about that position. And they were similar prospects, 5-star guys. But I will say the one difference that Keontae has in Landon, Keontae was playing football in Southern Indiana last year.
Yeah.
No offense to the Hoosiers. A little bit different than 6A football in Central Kentucky, where Lafayette was playing some of the better programs. So that's why this month of September, I think if you give him enough reps, then he can, you can get to where you're splitting that 50-50 with either him and Wallabaugh, him and Buford, or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's got to be you can't simulate it in practice either. Like, I don't care how many times he goes up against J.J. Weaver or Jordan Wright. It's a completely different game when there's 60,000 fans up there. And there's guys that don't know how you like Freddie, let's be real. Like, you get to know guys, you know what you can beat them on, and you pull out that bag of tricks quite a bit. It's different when it's a dude you've never seen before. It just is.
And also, game action is different practice. I don't care what you do in practice, how much the coaches want to make that a game-like situation. It's different.
Yeah.
Players go harder.
The
speed's different. The physicality is different. The scheme is more complicated when the lights come on. It just is. I mean, you can't replicate that. That's why an offensive line, it's harder. As the further you get away from the football, the more difficult it is to play that position. And left tackle is the most difficult offensive line position on the field. I would say center, but Eli Cox has played a lot of football. And, again, that's Eli Cox. He's a veteran. So, I think left tackle is a tricky spot for Kentucky. That's why I think early in the year you're going to see a lot of bootlegs, a lot of play action, a lot of run to the right. You're going to see throws to the tight ends, quick throws to Barrion Brown, Dane Key, Tavion Robinson. Let them make plays. And I think the intent will be to have positive yards on first and second down. Therefore, you're not in a 3rd and 9 situation quite a lot. Because right now, I don't think that's a good spot for Kentucky to be in obvious passing down with these tackles right now. I mean, it may grow into that, but you want to stay away from that. So I think that's why you're going to see the tight ends more active than the receivers, and you're going to see more catch and run type routes from these young receivers until they find their feet. So football's a 7-man operation.
The other thing too, Freddie, is the tight ends can certainly help,
block on the edge.
yeah. Like that's going to play a role. Like the notion that the left tackle, the blind side, has to be this all-star stuff. Like you can do things schematically to help them. Especially with an experienced old vet like Kenneth Horsey right there.
Yep.
Like that. So it's not as dire as, well, if he can't block the guy in front of him, then Will Levis is going to get sacked. I know.
Yeah, you can line a tight end out there and chip them. You can use a running back, etc. What that does, it takes one person out of the route, but that's okay. If you have multiple tight ends, I mean, you can use one to chip and block on the left side and still be okay. But again, I think the key, Nick, is to get ahead of the chains and not be in those obvious passing situations.
Yeah, and that's
not good for anybody.
No, that's not, and that's why that Miami game. As much as people want to talk about Miami being good, and we'll get into X's and O's, the Red Hawks next week. But the big thing for me, Freddie, I'm going to be really. Like, if we're talking, offense, big picture now, how does Rich Scangarello time up his shots, and how often does Will Levis take them, right? Because that was the big thing that Levis had to learn throughout the season last year is just because Liam calls a deep shot doesn't mean I need to take it. But, there's some moments where really the best time to take a shot is on first down, but you also don't want to get behind the chain. So I'm fascinated by this play calling balance with Rich Scangarello in week 1, where they're going to keep it relatively vanilla, but he's still going to throw enough out there formationally and show enough stuff that makes Florida makes all Billy Napier's 1,000 quality control guys watch extra film.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that's a good mix. When do you want to take shots? If you do take a shot, is there an obvious check down? Things like that. You're going to see probably against Miami of Ohio some shots, more shots than average, because you want to see if those receivers can stretch the field. You want to see Will Levis work on the deep ball against an opponent that you should beat. And you don't want to see pressure or put pressure on those tackles, but you want to see what they can do before you go to the swamp, because that's not an easy place to play by any means. So, I think Will's deep ball is going to be better, mainly because of the receivers are better that are running those routes, and there's more of them.
Yeah.
You watched last year where it would be a play action shot. Will would make his run fake, and then his eyes would go straight to Wandale and only on Wandale, and it was Wandale or nobody. So,
then Wandale runs 50 yards downfield and then has to run back and do it all over again. I don't care how good a shape you're in.
That was unhealthy. Yeah. For the offense.
So here's a question for you, Freddie. I got 3 of them. All right, because we talked about the pass catchers. Who's going to lead the team in receptions?
Oh wow, Tavion Robinson.
I think that one's pretty clear cut. Now, here's where it gets a little more difficult.
Yeah.
Receiving yards.
Ooh. Dane Key.
That's probably where I'm going to say as well.
Or Barryon Brown, one of those 2.
All right, receiving touchdowns.
Jordan Dingle.
Damn it, Freddie. I thought I was going to have a hot take on that one. But I do think it's going to come from that tight end room.
I do too.
It might be a situation where they split some of the, where Isaiah Cummings gets 4, Dingle gets 4. Maybe that room as a total has like 15 or something like that. And so there's not any one guy. Right. But I do kind of think that that's how things are going to break down.
Yeah, I do too.
As far as, receptions. We glossed over the running backs because they've been so good that it's like a given that they're awesome. We're not certain when Chris Rodriguez is going to be there. 3 or 4 games. We'll find out on Monday. But out of the second group of running backs, right, there's a lot of dudes in there. Cavassier Smoke, Lavelle Wright, Jatan McClain, and Ramon Jefferson. You got 4 dudes. Rodriguez absence or not, who do we think gets the most carries out of those 4 guys?
First of all, I think if Rodriguez isn't on the field is a huge deal. Some don't because of the depth of the running back position. I think it's a huge deal because a healthy 12-game Chris Rodriguez would have broken every record at Kentucky. So you're talking about the best to ever do it at Kentucky. And there's been a lot of dudes at running back at UK, right? So
yeah,
I'm one that does not downplay him not being on the field. I think it's a serious deal. 2, Ramon Jefferson, in my opinion, will probably be the guy until C-Rod gets back. And you'll see Cavassier get carries. Lavelle Wright is the future. Jatan McClain is the X factor for the entire show.
Yeah,
you're going to see him line up everywhere. They're going to get the football to him in different ways through the passing game, run game, etc. I think that is your X factor for the season is Jatan McClain. I was a big fan of Jefferson's. I'm a huge fan of FCS football. I watch it every time it's on. I look it up and watch it. I follow the rankings. Dude was an All-American. That upper level of FCS is good football. Don't mistake that. That is good football. Players, coaches, people that I talk to that go watch practice and scrimmage just rave about Ramon Jefferson. So I think his experience, he's going to be the guy to get the bulk of the carries until C-Rod comes back.
Yeah, and for me, that's the big McClain, as you mentioned, is the X factor. I think he's going to ultimately end up getting the second most snaps of them all, but not necessarily the most carries.
Yeah,
because this dude should catch between 30 and 40 balls this year.
Yeah,
whether he's lining up as a running back, motioning out to the slot, like he can be a true slash receiver / running back for this offense.
Yeah, and same could be said about Donut Drennan too.
And I forgot about him.
Will Levis talk about him. But my take on the running backs is if anybody's telling you it's going to be okay if C-Rod doesn't play, that's not my take because he's a positive play running back.
Yeah.
Downhill. And again, if he was healthy and ran through a 12-game schedule, he would top Benny Snell, Sonny Collins, Marquette, all these guys that are legends in Kentucky football. He would be on top of that, right?
I'm curious too if he still has enough runway to do it because he might,
He might.
He's that good. He's that good.
Well,
he's already close to passing Mark Higgs. I think he only needs like 50 yards or something.
The only thing I would say about that, Nick, is you play 3 non-conference games in the first 4 games of the season.
Yeah, so you're missing out some easy stat patterns.
You get a lot against Miami, even though they're good, Northern Illinois and Youngstown State. So, he's getting Georgia on the back end of the schedule too. So but it's a major deal to me in how many games he misses because I'm a big C-Rod fan. But man, that's going to be tough to go to Florida and beat the Gators without him. And that's going to put a lot of strain on Levis and that core running backs that we keep talking about. There's a difference in, okay, these guys can get you some yards, and there's a difference in that, and this dude's going to change a game. There's very few running backs in the country that can change a game. A lot of them can get you yards, right? I think C-Rod is a guy that can change a game. And not having that in the lineup is going to hurt Kentucky.
I'm excited for this Kentucky football season to get going, Freddie. We're now less than 2 weeks away. We're gonna get week 0 coming up this week. But Freddie, high school's already kicked off, and the Kroger KSR game of the week you were in Breathitt County.
Yeah.
Last week, you went from Eastern Kentucky. Now you're going to Western Kentucky. Can you just talk a little bit about your trip to Breathitt County. And I know it's your second time back to the flooded areas. What'd you see when you were down there?
I was both heartbroken and uplifted at the same time. Seeing the damage, seeing homes completely swept away from their foundation, and 8 deaths, 8 souls lost tragically, 2 still missing. I mean, I couldn't get past that the whole time I was down there because it really weighed on me, and seeing the damage. But then I met a guy named Daryl, just a sweet older guy, and he was talking about the National Guard rescued his granddaughter. On the flight back to where they took his granddaughter, she asked him to check on her grandfather, and the soldiers came back and checked on him, and just stories like that. And the story of the game was really about the fact that the game was held. That, to me, that facility was 6-10 feet underwater, a football field, and just total devastation. And 3 weeks later, they're playing a football game there, and it's packed. The community's there. They're smiling. They're celebrating their team 43-0 win. But for me, it was a community celebration of strength, a show of, hey, we're going to rebuild. And to me, that's what it was for my 2 days down there. It was just a various rate of emotions. And then we're going to Mayfield on Friday.
Freddie, the thing too that I'm glad you really hit on the word community, because that's why we partner with Kroger to go to these communities all over the state. And in particular this week, where it gives you a time to like, for the first time in a long time, everybody got to get together, and it wasn't to talk about something bad. They got to watch football, and there's something about it. Like, I'm excited to get back out to the high school fields this Friday just to catch up with people. And, even though my DeSales Colts are going to be overmatched against North Hardin, who's got a couple D1 players on it, just having that sense of community.
Yeah.
That's what high school football is all about.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that you're going west, because you're going to a football community that has some history, has a lot of wins down there in Mayfield.
I can't wait, Nick, and you're so right. Kroger is about community, and the Kroger hometown community tour that we do. I've been to a lot of places interviewing the top players in Kentucky, and the Kroger game of the KSR game of the week is about community as much as it is about football, and it very much was in Breathitt County, and it's very much going to be that way in Mayfield. I've always wanted to go to Mayfield because, my age, Mayfield's like the Packers. That's a 12 state championships, 11 runner-up trophies. That is the 4th most wins in the country. I mean, that is a traditional power that I've always wanted to watch play at home in Mayfield. And I look forward to going down there on Friday. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, the one thing about Mayfield, though, we got to get them to change their logo. Like, what the hell? They're using a U of L logo. Like, I get it. If there's a Catholic school here, St. Stephen Martyr in Louisville. You're in the city of Louisville. You're the Cardinals. Use the Cardinal logo. But Mayfield, what the hell? There are plenty of Cardinals to choose from. You got Ball State. You got Arizona. You can run the game on Cardinals, and you pick the Louisville one. Come on, Mayfield.
There's going to be some players down there. Jatarius Starks is a junior from Mayfield. The WPSD, the TV station in Paducah, has him the 2nd-ranked player in the region down there.
Mm-hmm.
Jax Rogers is a linebacker, missed 2 years for knee injuries. He's a super senior. He's back. And then for Hopkinsville, Deshaun Mercer is the number 1 ranked player in far western Kentucky. He's committed to Miami of Ohio. But Mayfield, man, I mean, that's tradition. I'm looking forward to watching these 2 traditional programs, but I always wanted to go to Mayfield.
Mm-hmm.
And just all those state championships, all those memories, and to look how Mayfield is recovering from the tornadoes that was so bad in that area. And now
we can't forget about that either. That was just a year ago.
Yeah, and then I said earlier that we've never been west of Owensboro. We actually have been to Henderson, so this is the furthest west that we've ever gone for the Kroger KSR game of the week. and I'm looking forward to visiting Mayfield, the community, the Graves County community there in Mayfield, to see the stadium and all the history and tradition that is a part of Mayfield football. I'm excited about that, Nick.
Mayfield versus Hoptown Friday night, KSR Kroger game of the week. It's exciting.
Yeah.
We're back week 0. I'm going to be staying up late to watch Vanderbilt play Hawaii, Freddie, because I've got a problem.
Not me, Nick. I'd say after 4 hours to Mayfield, 4 hours back, I'll be resting. But little news, an update about the Depth Chart podcast.
Yeah.
We're going to be on Sundays.
Yeah, Sunday mornings.
Yeah, so it's going to be our weekly slot on the On3 KSR podcast world. Is going to be on Sunday, so it's going to be a little bit different. And we're going to have a has-been corner where we're going to talk to some former players about what we saw the night before when Kentucky played. So it's going to be like a post-game show.
Yeah.
It's going to be in a podcast version, and I'm excited about it. I know Andy Murray is going to join us, Jay Dortch, and I'm going to get some other former Wildcats in my era to talk about what they saw. And not just what they saw, but I think it's interesting to get their point of views on just being a former player. How the program welcomes them back, or if they have issues with tickets, things like that, just little things. But yeah, we're going to talk X's and O's. We're going to talk about personnel, and Jay and Andy and those guys are pretty straightforward, and they don't sugarcoat anything, Nick.
Well, and the big thing too is it's going to, like you said, and we got a podcast lineup. So Sunday morning, as soon as the game's over, you're going to get your heavy dose of Freddie Maggard. Then Freddie's going to join Wildcat, Drew, and I Monday nights, 7 p.m. for the KSR football podcast. Wildcat and I will be on Wednesday nights. I think Jack might be Tuesdays. Thursdays, we've got Pick 3 with me, Drew, and Jack, and Free Money. So pretty much every day of the week, you can find something on the KSR podcast feed or the KSR YouTube channel. So subscribe. And make sure you're locked in. We're going to be there 4 or 5 days a week. Big shout out to our friends at Port Royal Plants, title sponsor, KLW Belts, everybody for help making all this happen.
Yeah, and I want to thank Trey, too, that puts all this together. These videos are pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And, for me, it's pretty cool to see it as we talk, and I enjoyed that. Thank you, Nick. We're going to miss you on the day. This is your last one, man.
Well, I'm going to hang around for a little bit. Yeah, I might do another show or two because I can't kick a bad habit, right away. But some of those times too where we're going to be on the road, that's the perfect time to dial out the Depth Chart podcast and see how everybody's doing. Maybe after a big win in Gainesville, perhaps.
Yeah. So. Make sure you like us. We appreciate it. Seriously, this has been a long one, 58 minutes. I'm sorry for that, but we went over the whole offense, and I appreciate you all taking time out to listen to us. So like us, subscribe us, download it, and thanks for being with us through this. Nick, thank you very much. Trey, thank you, and hopefully you'll tune in next Sunday.